What's up, marketers? In today's video, I'm going to share with you everything I've learned spending $10 million on Snapchat ads. Now, this is not going to be a step-by-step tutorial video, but I do have one of those, so if you want to see that, be sure to check it out in the description bar below. This video is instead going to talk about the things that I wish someone taught me before I started spending money on Snapchat ads. Things like attribution, what types of ad creative and formats are best, and all the nitty-gritty nuances that make Snapchat ads a lot different than Facebook ads. Additionally, if you or your client is interested in trying out Snapchat ads, I've actually partnered with them to give you free credits to try out the platform. It's a spend 1,000, get 1,000 deal. I also have a lower tiered offer, so if you're a media buyer or a business owner, you already know what a massive value that is. Be sure to check out that offer in the description bar below. Now let's go ahead and dive in because we got a lot to cover. So the first thing that I want to talk about with you guys is Snapchat ads creative. Now, one of the most common questions I get from you is, can I use the same type of content on Snapchat that I'm using on Facebook ads or TikTok ads? And what I've found is generally what's working really well on Instagram stories ads is also going to perform pretty well on Snapchat. Additionally, I find that TikTok or Reel style content also tends to perform well. However, there are a few best practices that are super specific to Snapchat ads. The first one is you need to use a 9:16 format or vertical. And something that's really cool about Snapchat Ads Manager is you can actually convert all of your video directly to a vertical format. All that you have to do is go to the create video button and there's a converter right there that you can use. Additionally, I found that images tend to not perform that well on Snapchat. You'll definitely need video, and I've also found that using user-generated content or UGC is really going to be your best bet for success. Another interesting nuance about Snapchat ads creatives is that you definitely need to create for the sound on. Because users are creating videos and creating snaps to send to their friends, they're often browsing with the sound on. So if your ad placement doesn't actually have any audio, it's going to feel really out of place for the user. With that said, I would still use text overlay or even subtitles. In general, I find that when I have a video of someone actually speaking directly to the camera, that tends to perform better than using voiceover or even just audio music over the ad. Now, if you want to go the extra mile on your Snapchat ads creative, I would try to go as native as possible. If you're already using user-generated content, what I would do is I would use the text bar that is native to Snapchat and put that directly in your ad. Additionally, I would encourage the creators that you're working with to directly call out the Snapchat platform. Say something like, "Hey Snapchat," or "What's up Snap fam." I've actually found that calling out Snapchat distinctly tends to work a little better for some reason, and I haven't actually found that on other platforms, so it's something that I think right now is pretty unique to Snapchat. Now, something else that you guys asked me about was compliance tips so that you could get your ad creatives approved quicker and you wouldn't have to reach out to support. Unfortunately, Snapchat rules and regulations around the types of ad creatives and even the types of products that you can advertise to are way more strict than I've found with Facebook ads. So my biggest advice is you need to check out those policies beforehand. And I'm going to leave a link below so that you can check that out directly from this video. And from my experience, you're almost always going to run into roadblocks if you're doing anything in the supplement, the health and pharmacy, or even the dating space. In fact, for one of my clients in the supplement space, we actually had to fill out a pre-approval form before they were even allowed to advertise. Additionally, I worked with a dating client about a year or two ago, and they just ended up not being able to advertise on Snapchat ads. So I don't have any good hacks or workarounds for ad compliance for this platform. You literally just need to check out the rules and regulations and probably reach out to support as well. The next thing I want to talk about is the audience or the actual users of Snapchat, because one of the most common questions I get is, isn't Snapchat just a bunch of teenagers? That's why one of my favorite facts about Snapchat is actually more than 50% of Snapchat users are over the age of 25 and they have real buying power. So my rule of thumb is if I'm working with a client who has even a segment of their audience who's under the age of 40, I immediately get them on Snapchat ads. Another question you guys asked is which markets are working the best for me. So I primarily work in the D2C e-com space. So the markets I'm seeing the most traction in out of Snapchat ads right now are health and beauty brands, as well as supplement brands and fashion and accessories brands. But I think a lot of that is just due to the types of clients I work with. Another interesting nuance is I am able to much better attribute performance to Snapchat ads for brands that have products that are under $50. And I am going to go into more of why this is in a little bit, but it is just something for you to note. With that said, one of my most successful Snapchat ads clients had a product that was $1,500. And while attribution was a mess, we did find a way to work around it, and it is still a platform that they're advertising on today. The next question that I want to address is the best way to check out your competitors' ads on Snapchat ads. Now, unfortunately, unlike Facebook and TikTok, there isn't a Snapchat ads library that you can go through and see what other brands are using as their creative. However, I have found a workaround for this. And the two things that you're going to need to make this work is, number one, you're going to need to have Snapchat Pixel Helper installed on your browser, and you're also going to need your own Snapchat account and app directly on your phone. And the way that you're going to do this is, once you have the Snapchat Pixel Helper installed on your browser, you're then going to go around to websites of your competitors and see which ones actually have the Pixel installed on their site. Once you find a list of brands or competitors that are utilizing Snapchat, then what I would do is I would use your mobile device and browse around on their websites, go to multiple product pages, and add a lot of stuff to cart. Then when you actually start browsing the Snapchat app, you should start to see those ads start coming up organically in your Snapchat feed. And you should start to see those ads within a few hours to a few days. So be sure to continually check back into the app to see if you are able to see another type of creative from your competitor. Unfortunately, I have not found anything better than this. The next thing I want to address is the actual account structure on Snapchat ads and how similar or dissimilar it is to Facebook ads. So to be honest, the actual account and campaign structure that I am using on Snapchat ads is almost identical to what I'm using on Facebook ads. So I'm going to have my prospecting campaigns and my retargeting campaigns. And if I'm trying out dynamic catalogs, then I'm also going to have a separate campaign for that. But hint, hint, I haven't really found those to work so well. So use at your own risk. One big difference on Snapchat ads is they don't have CBO or campaign budget optimization. So all budgets are going to be set at the ad set level. Additionally, I also had someone ask if I was finding more prospecting or retargeting success from Snapchat ads. And I would definitely say that it's more of a top of funnel driver. I also want to address the type of targeting or audiences that tend to work best on Snapchat ads. And again, much like Facebook, I'm still finding a lot of traction out of broad or completely open targeting on this platform. Oftentimes it's where I start. However, be sure to dive deep into Snapchat interest targeting. Snapchat's interest targeting is way more powerful than Facebook's. And that's because they have a partnership with Visa and they give you access to all of that buyer data, which you can then in turn target with your ads. And what's cool about this specific type of targeting too is this has not been affected by iOS 14. So if you're losing results on Facebook as a result of that change, this is another big reason to try out Snapchat ads. Additionally, I want to talk a little bit about spend and how that compares or differentiates to what I'm spending on Facebook ads or Google. And to be honest, I'd say that when looking at my clients' overall spend across all of their paid social and paid media platforms, I'm spending anywhere from 10 to about 35% on Snapchat. Frankly, Facebook and Google are still the biggest drivers of spend for most of my clients. The next thing I want to talk with you guys about, and frankly, this is the most important part of the entire video, is attribution. In fact, one of you guys wrote to me and said that you ran tests on Snapchat ads for 6 months, but in the end, you couldn't attribute a single purchase through Google Analytics back to the platform. And I'm not gonna lie, this is a common problem. So here's what you need to know about Snapchat ads attribution. Number one, getting proper attribution back to the platform is way more of an art than a science. It's not easy. Generally, Snapchat Ads Manager is almost always going to over-attribute sales, while Google Analytics is almost always going to under-attribute sales. Unfortunately, GA does not play nice with UTMs from Snapchat because Snapchat is a mobile-only platform. Now, I'm not actually sure if I'm allowed to show you guys this, but I was in a meeting with a few Snapchat reps last week, and they showed me this slide which perfectly breaks down why it is so hard to get attribution from Snapchat ads inside of Google Analytics. So you can see right here the conversions that are trackable in Snapchat Ads Manager, and the ones that are trackable in Google Analytics. And really where the real breakdown is occurring is that if it's going to be attributed directly to Snapchat inside of GA, it needs to happen really same browser. So someone sees the ad, clicks on the ad, and then immediately checks out. That's going to register on Google Analytics, which is why I think that products that are $50 or under are going to have a much better success at having that attribution because the barrier to entry is a lot lower. Again, too, this is why free trials work so well. However, if someone sees your ad on Snapchat, goes to the website, and then doesn't decide to buy then, and then opens up their browser on desktop or even mobile, that transaction is going to be completely lost to Google Analytics. What do you do? How do you get proper attribution for Snapchat ads? Every single time I start working with a new client who's using Snapchat ads, or I'm working with a media buyer who's on the platform, my very first question that I always ask is, what's your attribution window? And if it's default, which is 28-day click, 1-day view, that's a major red flag to me. And it's very likely that you are giving Snapchat way too much credit. That's why to properly advertise on the platform and to figure out what your goals need to be, you're gonna need to run an attribution analysis. However, the cool thing about Snapchat is it's super easy to run this analysis directly inside of Snapchat Ads Manager. And unlike Facebook, Snapchat is not combining the attribution and optimization window into one. So when you're choosing your attribution setting in Snapchat ads, you're not actually choosing for the algorithm to optimize towards that. It's just you choosing how you want to look at your data. And all you have to do is go to your columns and make sure that you have the cost per purchase and ROAS right down here, or else you're not going to be able to open up this window, and then just open it up. So there's a lot going on here, so I'm going to really quickly explain this. By default, I and most media buyers use conversion time to under this little toggle right here. I don't actually know what the exposure time is. I've asked a few times from Snapchat reps, but to be honest, I've just never understood their explanation. It is not the fault of Snapchat at all. I am just too small brained to really understand the nuance difference there. So just use conversion time as my advice. Now, what's really cool here then about the attribution window is you're going to be able to choose your swipe attribution, which is essentially the equivalent of a click-through. So you have 1 day, 7 day, 28 days. And then for view attribution, what's really cool is you can do none. So you can only do swipe or click-through attribution. But the cool thing about Snapchat that I love is they have hours, so that you can use an hour view through, 3 hours, even 6 hours. And really what that means is you're allowing to see when someone is converting after seeing your ad within an hour. So if someone sees your ad and then an hour later makes a purchase, or 3 hours later, or 6 hours later, you're able to see that through that view attribution window. And I do recommend using one of those, but let me dive into that in just a second. Now, in order to run an attribution analysis, what you're going to do is you're going to open up a sheet and you're going to literally start pulling the numbers from the different attribution windows. And I'd say that you could pull these numbers from the last quarter. Now, like I said, the thing that is unique for Snapchat ads is they have hourly view through conversion windows. Facebook doesn't have this. And for the most part on Facebook, nearly all of my clients are using click-through attribution windows because it's also the optimization window. So I want the algorithm to optimize for purchasers who are actually going to be clicking on my ads, not just seeing them. However, with Snapchat, I often encourage my clients to look at a view through window of 1 hour or 3 hours, depending on the product. And that's because an impression on Snapchat to me means a lot more than it does on Facebook or Instagram. And that's because it's a sound on experience. So that ad impression is actually way more of an immersive experience than just swiping through an ad that you see on Instagram or Facebook. So if someone takes an action and purchases a product 1 to 3 hours after seeing my ad on Snapchat, I actually think that's pretty impactful. So I like to include that. So I would say that for the most part, my clients are on a 1 day click or 7 day click attribution setting on Facebook. And for the most part, I am using a 7 day click, 3 hour view on Snapchat, or a 1 day click, 3-hour view on Snapchat. Once you've chosen your new attribution window, the next thing that you're going to want to do is to create a dashboard for tracking your Snapchat numbers. This is going to include your numbers from Snapchat Ads Manager, your blended CAC and ROAS, which is going to be a total of all of your advertising spend and your total revenue, as well as the data that's inside of Google Analytics and your post-purchase surveys if you have them. The first thing you're going to do is pull your Snapchat numbers with the new attribution into a sheet. I would also include a column that shows the percentage of view-throughs just in case the view-throughs start to get really out of hand, and you can concretely show which percentage of your ads had that click-through attribution. Next, you're going to be pulling your Google Analytics numbers. So you're going to need to see how many of your transactions are actually registering to GA, which is a last click attribution. And again, this is going to depend a lot on your product. If you have a low price product like under $50 that has a low barrier to entry, then I'd say you see about 50% of your transactions actually showing up in GA because they're going to be going directly from the ad to purchase, like in this part of the graph that I showed you earlier. But if your product is more than that and many of your purchases are taking these long journeys to purchase, you're not going to see that much in GA, but be sure to pull those numbers anyway so that you have them. Next up, you're going to pull your blended ROAS or your CAC numbers. And frankly, this is going to be the most important number you should be looking at now in 2021. This is your sense of truth. And if possible, also be sure to include your post-purchase survey results. And the way that I would look at it is this. Number one, blended is your most important number. Changes need to be made if this is falling off course. Next up is your Snapchat data with the right attribution window. How do the numbers compare to what's in Facebook right now? Are most of your conversions click through or view through? These numbers are how you're actually going to be optimizing everything from the Snapchat ads platform. It's not like you're going to be looking at Google Analytics or even your post-purchase survey results and seeing like, oh, I need to turn off this ad set. You're just going to be optimizing from what's directly in Snapchat Ads Manager. Next up is Google Analytics. Now, like I said earlier, tracking Snapchat transactions on GA is incredibly flawed, but if you have a low-cost product or an excellent free trial offer, this is a great place to have a gut check. If your product is higher price, this is going to be way more complicated, and that's when I'd look more closely at my click-through versus view-through conversions on Snapchat Ads Manager. And finally is your post-purchase survey results. Most times I find that I have to multiply these numbers by 2 to get a better sense of truth because not everyone fills this thing out. And again, this is another flawed metric because it's based on the user actually reporting back, and sometimes the user doesn't know the difference between, oh, this is how I first discovered the brand versus this is what actually got me to convert. So be sure to take your post-purchase surveys with a grain of salt. Now, you could be in the habit of pulling this data every single week, but to be honest, once you figure out what your relationship and your brand's relationship is to Snapchat ads, I don't think you have to pull these numbers on the regular. In fact, I like to pull these numbers in the initial stages just to figure out what's going on with Snapchat and how it's actually being attributed. And like I said, I'm not gonna lie, this is way easier to do this with products that have a lower cost or for free trials. For the most part, you're gonna be able to track that just fine in Google Analytics. But for clients that don't have that lower price, I want to urge you to still try out Snapchat anyways, but that's when you're going to be relying heavily on blended numbers. I mean, that's even what we're doing for Facebook ads now, so it's not that much different on Snapchat. And like I said, for my client that had the product that was over $1,000, we relied heavily on the blended number to know that we were on the right track. And a big reason why that was is because our numbers were always better when we were using Snapchat, because there were a few times where we ended up shutting it off and just actually seeing if it was making a difference. Spoiler, it was. But really the big thing is that we were using that proper attribution window directly inside of Snapchat Ads Manager, so we knew what types of numbers we should be optimizing towards, which is ultimately what was showing us how much we should be spending on the platform. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is which conversion or optimization event that you want to start using, especially if you're brand new to Snapchat ads. Now, they call these events goals, and my recommendation is to use Pixel Purchase if you can. If you can't use Pixel Purchase, that's actually a sign that you haven't had enough events being triggered on your website. So then I would go ahead and do an add to cart. To be honest, these optimizing for higher funnel events like page view or swipe up, that is only a tactic that I see working in 2021 for a platform like TikTok. Sometimes I do have to start off there before I'm actually going off for purchases. But for both Facebook and Snapchat, I am almost always optimizing for purchase right out of the gate. Now, like I said, you're going to need 50 tracked purchases purchases on your Pixel before that unlocks. So what I'd actually recommend is if you're going to start utilizing Snapchat ads, try and install your Snapchat ads Pixel onto your website a few days or even a few weeks before, so that when you're ready to start advertising, you can go ahead and start optimizing for purchases. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about are the different bid types. And right here we have an auto bid, which is recommended. And this is really equivalent to lowest cost on Facebook ads, which is more or less the default. And then you have a target cost and then a max bid. To be honest, if I'm just starting with a client, I'm almost always starting off with auto bid just because I'm trying to get a sense of what our numbers are going to look like on the platform. But if I've already been working with the client, I generally do go to switch it to target costs just so that I'm controlling the costs and it's a little bit easier for me to optimize under the new attribution window. I never use max bid, and that's partially because it does end up choking the spend a lot more. And since a lot of my clients are at a volume play, I'd prefer to, utilize a bid strategy that didn't restrict costs so much. But if you have a really small budget, or you have incredibly strict cost goals, then maybe max bid is something that I would try. But for the most part, that's not what I would recommend. Now, the last thing I want to talk with you guys is about iOS 14 and how it has affected Snapchat ads. I think for the most part, Snapchat ads have not been as affected as Facebook ads. And the way that I've changed working on the platform definitely hasn't been as big of a shift and as disruptive as how I've felt on Facebook. But there are a few changes that have been made to the Snapchat ads platform that I want to talk about. Number one, the look back windows. So really similar to how Facebook deprecated 28-day click, 1-day view. Snapchat has deprecated 28-day view, which good because that's a crazy look back window. Next step, conversion reporting is delayed up to 36 hours. So what I'm actually saying is if I'm trying to look at metrics the same day or even yesterday inside a Snapchat Ads Manager, a lot of times nothing is showing up. So what me and my clients have been doing is we're actually only looking at numbers when there have been 72 hours that have passed. So we're only looking at metrics 3 days in the past and optimizing from there. It's definitely not perfect, but that's just where we are in June 2021. Next up, there are some reporting dimensions that have been broken down really similar to Facebook's breakdown. So we can't look at region and device. And then this is actually not correct right now, but they were going to be deprecating hourly view through windows. So we weren't going to be able to look at 1 hour view or 3 hour view, 6 hour view. This is not correct. And they're actually able to continue keeping with that, which is something new that Snapchat has announced within the last few weeks, which is really good. I'm really happy that we're able to keep those hourly view through windows. So yeah, you can see that right there. Another thing that Snapchat did that I was really glad that they included this, and I am going to include a link to this article below, they included the types of targeting that was going to have the most impact due to iOS 14. And really the big thing that we're seeing is dynamic ads retargeting is going to be the most affected, while things like Snapchat lifestyle categories and engagement audiences, which is again those Visa interest audiences, those are going to be the least affected. But be sure to take a look just at this article in general. It's super comprehensive. And the cool thing too is as long as you have the Snap Pixel, you're pretty much set to go for iOS 14 prep on Snapchat ads. One new thing, however, Snapchat has announced in light of iOS 14 is they're going to be rolling out their own version of aggravated events measurement, which Snapchat is calling advanced conversions. And essentially what they're going to be doing is they're going to be making it so that conversions and tracking is not going to be able to be tied back to a single user. And this data is going to be combined into cohorts, which is why we can't see same day data or the data from yesterday. Now, the cool thing about advanced conversions is it's just going to show up in our Snapchat Ads Manager within the next few weeks to months, and there's no action items for us as the media advisor to deactivate it, unlike aggravated events measurement on the Facebook side, which was a mess, frankly. Now, I'm going to leave a link to the article that's all about advanced conversions in the description bar below so you guys can do a deeper dive into what it's all about. But like I said, there's no action items on our side yet. Just be informed that it's going to start rolling out to your ads managers within the next few months. And that is it. Wow, guys, that was a whirlwind of an episode, and frankly, a long time coming, because I can't tell you how often I have conversations with other media buyers and business owners about how awful Snapchat's attribution is on third-party tracking. And really, that's just something that has to be dealt with, and a lot of it boils down to your product and your price. So be sure to run that attribution analysis and also pull those numbers and see where you're actually following out. And again, lean heavily on blended. It's exactly what we're doing on the Facebook side, and that's really the future of our industry. If you're a business owner who's interested in giving Snapchat ads a try, be sure to check out my free offer to get those free credits. And if you're a media buyer or an agency owner who's trying to figure out how to navigate this mess of iOS 14, diversifying your platforms is really a great way to do this. So agency owners, this is also something that you can utilize to get your clients to try out a new platform. And I've actually had a few clients that ended up doing way better on Snapchat ads than Facebook ads anyways. So you never know. It's worth a shot. If you have any questions about Snapchat ads and about attribution or about anything else that I went over today, be sure to hit me up in the comments below. I am really active there, and I'll see you guys next week. Later. Bye.